Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today I'm bringing you guys the next installment of my beta reader series. I have had such a blast creating this series and oh my god, I'm pretty sure I said this in my last beta reader video, but like I'm just so floored with how many of you guys have said that this series is helping you guys or that you find it interesting. I'm so fucking glad. I'm obviously doing this thing for you, so I'm glad that it's helpful. And today I'm going to be breaking down the pros and cons of having a beta reader questionnaire versus doing an interview. But before we get into the pros and cons, let's break down what exactly the questionnaire is and what the interview is. So the questionnaire is just a set of questions that you would typically email to your beta readers along with the chapters that basically just have all of the questions that you want them to answer, and then they fill out the questionnaire. For my beta reader process, I do give my betas the option of either choosing to do the interviews or fill out the questionnaires. And I personally use Google Forms for my questionnaires just because it's a lot easier to organize everything, and I think that it's just a better organizational system to use if you're going to use questionnaires, because again, it can be really easy to lose track of where all of your betas are at and where the questionnaires are and stuff like that. But that's just what I do. And then with the interview, you're asking the same exact questions that you would ask if you were doing questionnaires. These interviews will typically take place on some sort of social media platform like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or even Discord. So first, let's talk about the pros of the questionnaire option. Pro number one, it is time efficient. All you have to do is make the questionnaires and send it out to betas, and that's gonna take you what, 10, 20, maybe 30 minutes, like at most. So it's just a really time efficient method, which is really nice because us writers are busy people and we really try to cut down our time with doing stuff as much as we possibly can. And then number two, it's a lot easier to organize feedback, and also it's faster because all you have to do is copy and paste whatever your beta sent you and boom, done. That's all you gotta do. And then next, let's talk about the cons for the questionnaire. Number one, brief and unhelpful answers. Sometimes when betas do the questionnaire option, they'll give you like 3-word answers, or they'll just be like one sentence and it won't be very helpful or thorough. I will say that this does also happen if you do the interview option, but I think it's a lot less common. And plus, if that happens during the interview, you can just ask your betas to elaborate on what they're saying, but you can't exactly do that with the questionnaire because they fill it all out and then send it to you, so it wouldn't make that much sense to do that. And number two, you can't customize the questions that you are going to ask each of your betas for most of the time, and the only caveat to that is if you are sending an individual questionnaire to each one of your betas. I personally don't do that, so it is considered a con for me. And I will say that most authors probably don't have specific questions that they ask some of their betas, but some people do, and if you go with the questionnaire option, you wouldn't be able to do that. Number three, you can't have an open discussion or ask a beta to elaborate most of the time, because by the time that they send in their answers, a good amount of the time they don't really remember what they were thinking, or they kind of just don't want to have to elaborate on it again. So it's kind of a pain sometimes, and with interviews it's just a lot easier to ask betas to elaborate or clarify. And now let's get into the pros of the interview. So number one, more thorough answers. I am not saying that betas who do the questionnaire option always will give you brief answers, and I'm not saying that betas who use the interview are always going to give you super thorough answers, but honestly, all of my betas who give me like the most thorough feedback do the interview method. And as an author, this pro is extremely important to think about, because obviously you are going to want the most thorough feedback possible in order to make your book the best that it can be. Number two, betas usually like the interview better than the questionnaire, and I think that's partly why most betas who do the interview option will give very thorough answers, because it's a lot more fun for them. And honestly, for a lot of betas, I'm sure that questionnaires kind of feel like homework, versus with the interview, they're kind of just talking with a good friend about the details of the book that they just read. And lastly, number 3, as an author, the interviews are so much fun. I love the interviews so much. It's one of my favorite parts about the beta reader process, and reading over the questionnaires is definitely a fun time as well, but there's just something so nice about being able just to freak out with your beta readers and tell them how amazing they are. And I don't know, I just really enjoy the interview experience. It's just so nice, and it's definitely one of my favorite parts of this process. And I have so many screenshots on my phone of some of the stuff that my betas have said, because they're just so sweet and I love them all so much. Hi, Editing Kylie here. I have nothing intelligent to add, but I want to give an example I was thinking of while I edited this clip. One of my beta readers, Annie, she gave a nickname to one of the werewolves in my book, and she called him the Hunky Werewolf. And to this day, it's one of my favorite like nicknames my betas have ever given a character. It's just so good. So yeah, I just love the interviews so much. They really entertain me sometimes. And now let's get into the cons. Number 1, it is extremely time consuming. So the other day, I actually had an interview that took, I'm not even joking, like 5 hours. So that wasn't a fun time. So that was very crazy. To be fair, like, we were both kind of responding kind of slowly, so that's probably the majority of the reason why it took so long. But I would say most interviews take like an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on how fast me and the beta reader are responding to each other. And I think that this can definitely be a larger con for some people than others. For me, I usually just send in the questions as I'm doing something else. So I would say most of the time when I have to do the interviews, I'm usually like reading. And since I prep all my questions in advance, it's not really that hard, because I quite literally just copy and paste all of the questions and then I slightly alter them, not gonna lie. So it's not like awful, but it definitely is time consuming. So if you're someone who wants a quick option, the interview isn't gonna be that. Number 2 is that depending on how you are organizing your beta reader process, sometimes interviews are spread across several different platforms, which can make everything really fucking confusing when you go to organize feedback, because then you're kind of just like, wait, where is this feedback? Is it on Instagram? Is it on Twitter? Is it on Facebook? Is it on Discord? I don't remember. Oh my god. This is one of the many reasons I host my beta rounds on Discord, because I avoid that issue. So I would highly recommend doing that. If you haven't seen my video about how I use Discord to organize my beta reader process, I'll have it linked down below if you want to check it out. Number 3, sometimes you can forget to ask questions. I know, at least for me, sometimes, because like I said, I do have my list that I copy and paste, but sometimes I'm like out of the house, so I'll just be on my phone with the interview, and sometimes I'm too busy to actually go and look at the questions on my questionnaire, so I kind of just guess it and hope for the best. For me, most of the time, it's just me forgetting to ask about like someone's thoughts on a minor character in the scene. So it's not that big of a deal, but it is just something to keep in mind, that you're gonna have to make sure that you have your questions somewhere. That way you don't forget to ask them, because obviously with the questionnaire option, you won't forget to ask them because it's on the questionnaire. They're all right there. Hi, hello, it's Editing Kylie again. So how much did you miss me? So I started like explaining this next part, but then for some reason, I don't know if like filming cut off or if there's a second clip that I accidentally got rid of, but anyways, I wasn't able to finish the explanation, so I just thought I'd just say it over. So basically, at the end of this video, I just talked about kind of my thoughts on the questionnaire versus the interview and what I'd recommend for you to use. I would say that if you're at the part of the beta process where you really need a lot of in-depth feedback, you're going to want the interviews, just because 9 times out of 10, at least in my experience, betas are going to give more in-depth feedback if you do the interview option. However, if you're at a later stage of the process and you might not need as much in-depth feedback, then I think that questionnaires are fine. And in general, I think most betas give pretty good feedback. It's just like a matter of what works best for you, and you just have to, you know, think about all of the pros and cons, and whatever is going to work best is really what it comes down to. So I hope that you enjoyed today's video. I know it was a little short, but hope it was helpful, and if you liked it, please give it a big thumbs up and hit that big red subscribe button down below, and turn on those post notifications so that you know every time that I upload 3 times a week, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!